In the MTC, though, there were a lot of things that I wish I'd maybe been a little more prepared about, things I wish I'd known. Like in the MTC, that you do a lot of sitting. You just sit there for hours and hours and hours and hours every day. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I do wish that I'd spent some time before my mission working on building my attention span. I'd spent a lot of time online and playing games and watching movies and just regular multimedia activities before my mission. And for me, that made it very difficult to sit down and read a book, particularly scripture, for long periods of time. And so for the first couple of weeks in the MTC, I would get headaches from trying to force myself to pay attention to one subject or one topic for an extended period of time. And I feel like I really could have avoided that if I'd emphasized scripture study and reading and just things that helped me build up my attention span ahead of time. I think it would have also been nice to realize that the group that I'm put with is the group that I will stay with for the next 6 weeks. Now it's 6 weeks. When I was there, it was 9 weeks. And you make friends, but that can also be difficult because you're doing the same things every day for 6 weeks with the same people every day for 6 weeks. And I think it's very important to recognize that the people in the MTC have different ideas about what a missionary is and what a missionary should do and what a missionary should be and what you're becoming. They have a different end goal in mind than you do. And that's not a bad thing, because what they need and what they'll turn into is just as valid and just as useful to the Lord as what you're doing and what you'll turn into. But if you go in with a one-size-fits-all, shirt and tie, black and white penguin missionary mindset, that's going to be very challenging, especially for people who are on the East Coast and have to interact with a group of people from the West Coast and vice versa. I've noticed those two groups tend to butt heads a lot. So just patience, tolerance, love, Christ-like attributes, but most of all an awareness that that people are not going to adhere to your definition of a missionary just because you're there. If I'd known that, I think it would have really helped. I think it would have really helped me to develop that patience. Otherwise, the MTC is really cool. Be careful with the food because it's good. I really enjoyed MTC food, and you can gain a lot of weight that way very quickly. I know you always hear stories like, I gained 10 pounds in the MTC, I gained 20 pounds in the MTC, but it happens because you don't have a lot of opportunities to exercise, and they'll give you as much food as you tell them that you need. So if you go back for thirds and fourths and 9 donuts, they'll give it to you. So it's helpful to have an idea of how much food you need and then self-control, because you will gain weight if you don't. I came out of before my mission, I put myself on a diet, and I lost 30 pounds. And then in the MTC, in that nine weeks, I regained 10 of those pounds. The difference was not necessarily in the amount of physical exercise that I did, because I didn't exercise very much. I just limited my intake. It was that the MTC just gave me so much food. So self-control is important if you don't want to gain weight in the MTC. And I personally really liked the orange juice. Everyone says avoid the orange juice, but I drank it every day and I was fine. From what I've heard in the MTC, this is still continuing while I was there. The Dutch missionary groups that were going out were not always particularly large. This has been changing lately with the number of sister missionaries we've been getting, but usually while I was there, we would have groups of 3, 4, 5, 10 was a huge group, which meant that we got bundled in with the Danish and the Icelandic elders and sisters, and that was not a problem at all. In fact, it was really fun to get to hang out with different groups and interact with different people. It is just worth being aware that that you'll most likely be bundled with other groups of missionaries going to other places, unless you're in one of the larger groups. Learning Dutch can seem really difficult. I think the most important thing to develop in the MTC in regards to learning the language is a willingness to just speak. Dutch is an extremely structured language, so that sounds really counterintuitive. But if you're not speaking the language, it doesn't matter how much you're going to learn. And the Dutch are largely also fluent in English. So if you use poor grammar structure, they'll understand what you're trying to say, but you have to be willing to speak the language before you'll ever get better with it. The rules, the pronunciation, the other things, those will all come with time, and they'll come with repetition. A lot of speaking a language is muscle memory, and so the more you do it, the more you'll set patterns that you'll fall into and you'll fall back on when you need them. But again, you'll never get those if you're not speaking the language. So unless you're in a group with a native Dutch speaker, which happens once in a while, everybody else knows as little as you do. Principles from German are not always perfectly translatable over, so if someone's spoken German beforehand, good for them. Yeah, they'll have a leg up on the grammar. Yeah, they might understand a couple of the concepts faster, but it's not perfectly applicable, and in a lot of ways that can be a handicap as well. The Dutch do not like the Germans at all, so don't like that. They'll have to deal with their own thing, but just speak the language. Just say words, and the rest will come. The teachers are really, really nice in the MTC. They'll be as blunt as they need to be to help you improve, but they do it out of love. They don't intend to offend, but be aware that from my experience while I was there, they are willing to be blunt about shortcomings and where you can improve. And that's a good thing. It helps. It helps a lot. And of course, the Spirit is so present in the MTC. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, I don't know. The Spirit is just there like a blanket over the MTC, and whether or not you feel it right when you arrive, it's there and it's present and it's working with you, and it will make suggestions and it will help you, and it will push you along. So whatever progress you do or don't make in the MTC, that's okay, because the Spirit is there and it's helping you, and the Lord is aware, and He'll use whatever you bring to the table, whether that's a lot or whether that's a little. I've seen miracles, a lot of miracles come from missionaries who came away from the MTC without being any kind of superstar, but they were willing to take what they had and give it to the Lord, and He used that. So